Welcome to The Hypnotist, the show that gives you inside access to cutting-edge hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. Brought to you by the hypnotherapist demanded by celebrities, CEOs, and even royalty, Adam Cox. These recordings took place live from Adam's clinic in London's world-famous Harley Street. This podcast features powerful hypnosis, so do not listen while driving or operating machinery. This recording is not suitable for those with epilepsy or severe mental health issues. So, get yourself comfortable and enjoy today's episode of The Hypnotist.
Hi, it's Adam here, and in this very short episode of The Hypnotist, you're going to be listening to a summary of a particular structure that I use when people are still connected to a feeling of anxiety around an initial memory linked to a trauma at some level. Now, I work with a lot of phobics. It's probably one of the areas that I work a lot with. And generally, people arrive at a phobic response either from learning a phobia from a family member or indeed having a sensitizing event. Now, in that sensitizing event, if that, and it normally is the case, where you've got a traumatic event, what can then happen is that the brain is trying to keep the individual safe. And therefore, the heightened vigilance, the thinking, scenario planning, avoidance, all the symptoms of a phobia are effectively a coping strategy to reduce the risk of experiencing that particular anxiety or trauma again. One of the techniques that I use is actually to guide people a way of revisiting a memory, but then altering that memory in a particular way. So it gives them the ability to massively reduce anxiety. And this recording that you're about to listen to is effectively not so much hypnosis, but almost an NLP pattern using submodality shifts. Submodalities are just kind of different distinctions within internal experience. So a good example of a distinction could be color versus black and white. So if you have a memory, for example, you might be seeing that visually, and that visual representation could be color, could be black and white. It could also be a moving image, or it could be still. And what's really interesting is that when you work with enough clients, with enough anxieties, you start seeing patterns and trends. And generally, in my experience, people that revisit memories that are linked to trauma or anxiety, they tend to be associated, they're in their own body, witnessing or re-experiencing a moving image as if they're reliving it. And that propagates and fuels this belief that they're not in a position to actually handle a future event because they're revisiting not the bit where they got through it, but the heightened bit of anxiety. And that builds a belief system that they can't handle anything similar in the future. So the ideal way to listen to this is to think of a particular memory that currently, whenever you think about that memory, it causes some type of anxiety or distress. Maybe a phobia, or it may just be a bad memory or a moment that, in the benefit of hindsight, you would have liked to have handled in a different and perhaps more resourceful way. So find a quiet place. You don't have to close your eyes, but sometimes it helps to create more of a detailed internal representation of that particular memory. Okay, so I want you to think of a specific memory that was the cause of some kind of anxiety or stress. And initially, I want you to think of that memory as if you're reliving that memory. Get a sense of where the anxiety is in your body. Now, perhaps this anxiety is around the chest area, but it might be around the solar plexus or even the gut area. But get a sense where it is for you. Imagine re-experiencing the part of the memory just before the anxiety suddenly rapidly increased. And then at the point where you feel that anxiety starting to kick in, what I want you to do is imagine that you're putting a border around that particular memory, signifying to your unconscious mind that this has happened rather than is happening, perhaps in your favorite color. And then what I want you to do is imagine shrinking it down all the way to the size of a tiny coin. And at the point where you shrink this memory down, imagine sending it far, far away from you, perhaps several meters. So it's now smaller and further away. And then imagine that this memory is on a small coin, and imagine that you've got the ability to make the brightness very bright and then very dark, bright, dark, almost like it's pulsating, like a strobe light. And imagine doing it now. And what I want you to try and do is re-experience the anxiety at the same point that your brightness, dark. And as you do that, I want you to notice how difficult it is to re-experience the same level of anxiety as you experienced when it felt like a real reliving of that experience. And with the image all small and distorted and pulsating, dark and bright, then within that image, I want you to pull out a tiny image, this time of you seeing yourself reliving that experience, but in a very resourceful way. Just imagine you've got whatever resources are necessary to handle that specific event or moment. That's right. So within that small image, make a big image, make it really big, bright, but you're seeing yourself as if you're someone else, but you can tell from your facial expressions, how you're breathing, your body language, that this is a confident, resourceful version of you. And this time you're doing and living that memory exactly as you would have liked to if there was no anxiety. See yourself confidently and resourcefully doing exactly that thing that got you through that whole experience. And it doesn't have to be exactly as it was. This is a new reality, a new timeline. This is how you want it to be. And then just play that all the way out to the end. And at the point where there is no more distress, trauma, the moment is all completed, then imagine stepping into that version of you. So you're no longer watching yourself, you're now in your body. At the point where there is maximum relief or a sense of accomplishment that you're through whatever that experience was. So you're disassociating from the anxiety and you're associating into that resourceful, confident version of you that has got through this experience in exactly the way that you would have liked to. That's right. And you can play this back as many times to get it right in your mind, but just know that you've got the ability now to essentially scratch the CD of that memory so it never really plays the same way. Re-experience it as if you're living it, the point where anxiety increases, shrink it down, make it pulsate, and then have an image within that getting really big, but this time seeing yourself as if you're someone else, looking highly confident, resourceful, very able to live that experience in the way that you would have wanted to do. That's right. And now just kind of shake your body, kind of get yourself in a different state. And now we're going to try a different variation of that. This time, no shrinking, no pulsating. All I want you to do is imagine that you've got the ability to switch perspective from first person to third person. First person is you're in your own body. Third person is you're watching yourself, almost like you're a stranger watching you or perhaps a video camera filming you, but you're no longer in your body. And all I want you to do is imagine reliving the very experience that was traumatic or caused anxiety. And if you feel any anxiety whatsoever, imagine switching perspective so you're no longer in your body. You're seeing yourself as if you're someone else. And then make sure that you're watching yourself become more resourceful. See your body language change, facial expressions, breathing. And the moment that you're convinced you're now seeing a confident, resourceful version of you, then step back into your body and then continue the memory. And what may happen is you may need to do this initially 15, 20 times. Switch perspective, be in your body, observe yourself. Back in your body, observe yourself. But each time you do it, what you'll notice is it gets easier and easier and easier to one, jump out and switch back in, but equally you'll need to do it less frequently. And the point where you've completed this exercise is you've diluted that anxiety so much that you are now able to relive the entire memory in a resourceful, confident way and have things go the way you would have wanted them to have gone if you were in that confident, resourceful state all the way through. And you can revisit this and do it as many times as you want, trying out different anxious memories, different moments, but ideally focus on the first and the worst. the first time you experience this anxiety and the worst time you experience the anxiety. And if you can do it for those two, then it gives you a clue that you can do it with any situation. And that's it. And that's the homework for you to enable you to rewire the connection between unresourceful states and a trigger and connect it to the same trigger being linked to a resourceful state to enable you to revisit that memory in a very confident, resourceful way. Hope you found that useful. And I'll see you soon.
Thank you for listening to The Hypnotist with Adam Cox, the show that gives you inside access to cutting-edge hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. To automatically receive the latest episodes, please subscribe. If you'd like to support the show, please share this episode with just one friend you think it could help. And if this episode helped you, please leave us a 5-star review.